You're watching Force 13's live streaming service.
As Hurricane John edges closer to the coast of Mexico, it is also pushing very sharply on towards major hurricane status, which is likely to reach shortly. We probably are expecting it to be a Category 3 by the next advisory, which is due in an hour. Elsewhere, potential tropical cyclone 9 is still brewing in the Caribbean Sea, not far from the Cayman Islands. We'll be looking at that at various points during the stream as well. But John is the major focal point here, not just for its winds, but some extraordinary amounts of rainfall expected to be dumped from this storm as it dawdles around this area for quite some time. The provinces of Oaxaca and Guerrero all expecting, as a matter of fact, there's about a population of 4 million in here, all expecting rainfall in excess of, I think it was 1,000 millimeters, 40 inches. Absolutely incredible numbers, and I think that is being currently understated as we continue to watch the storm's prowess on satellite imagery. Clearly looking very good though, no doubt about it, as it is clearing out that eye, which we're all very confused about on this morning's stream, because the National Hurricane Center first started out by denying that there was an eye. Well, it's completely indisputable here that it has one, and perhaps even a northwesterly jog in those last few frames. Weak steering currents mean that the storm's track is pretty much up for grabs as it marches towards this potential landfall. Another thing to tell you about is that in the last 12 hours since our last stream, it has been moving at around an average of about 7.5 miles per hour, which is higher than what the National Hurricane Center has been indicating. Even at the last advisory they're saying 6. Earlier on it was 3, but in actual fact in the last 12 hours it's been about 7.5. So that's the kind of stuff, the movement we're looking at with John. So interesting signals, moving quicker than expected, obviously makes a landfall more likely, but it's moving further north and further west than expected, and could that potentially mean that the storm only, well, I don't want to say only because it is still very close to land right now, but whether it might actually drag itself along the coast and move further west, and that obviously brings into play Acapulco if that actually happens. Well, we'll get commentary from the team shortly and their thoughts. But let's first take a look at that forecast cone for Hurricane John, and you can clearly see that there's some big warnings out there. Major hurricane expected. They're forecasting a 120 mile per hour peak before this landfall in the region during the course of Monday, probably Monday afternoon, maybe Monday evening. Actually, no, that's Tuesday morning, I'm sorry. Tuesday morning into Tuesday late morning, potentially. Now, hurricane warning for east of Acapulco to Bahia de Huatulco, and tropical storm warning for east of there to Salina Cruz, clearly displayed on the map there. We'll also show you PTC 9, there it is, the latest cone on that one, 35 mile per hour winds at present, although I reckon they probably got a little bit higher on that last recon flight, but they've kept 35 miles per hour. They're expecting tropical storm status tonight, and then becoming a hurricane on Wednesday, and then a major hurricane Category 3 on Thursday afternoon before moving inland over the Bend region of Florida, the Florida Panhandle. It will be a very quick landfall as that happens. It's really speeding up as it does so, but also certainly looking towards a large wind field as well. You can see that they've issued tropical storm watches this afternoon for parts of the Florida Keys, the Dry Tortugas, and the Keys south of the 7 Mile Bridge. Hurricane watch for Cabo Catosha to Tulum and Pinar del Rio, and a tropical storm warning for Rio de Gatos to Tulum, Mexico, and Artemisa and Pinar del Rio in Cuba and the Isle of Youth. So lots of things to look at across the tropics, mainly around the Central American region, obviously expanding towards the US Gulf Coast later. Let's see if we can bring up some imagery as we introduce everyone then. My name's Nathan Foy here in the studio once again, and I am joined right now by a few people. A few of our usual faces. We have Maury, Jose, Ethan, and Christian joining us all tonight. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Looking at this progression of images, imagery is actually a little bit out of date now, actually, but certainly interesting to see how John was developing in those last couple of days. Ethan, John really starting to look good this evening. Obviously, it's been looking good all day, but particularly right now, the eye absolutely starting to pop out a lot more here and get much deeper.
It absolutely is, and it's still going to be a considerable threat to the coastline of Mexico. Of course, this isn't coming in as strong as Otis is. This is still going to be a major hurricane at landfall. Still going to cause a lot of problems, but the main threat with this one is, of course, the heavy rainfall. The National Hurricane Center and the Weather Prediction Center international total thing that they have is indicating as much as 30 inches or more of rain is going to fall. That's a lot of rain.
I saw the last GFS, Ethan. It actually maxed out our graphics. Our graphics max out at 72 inches.
Oh, impressive.
Wow.
So there's a few isolated spots that could get in excess of that. I mean, that is getting... that's nearly 2,000 millimeters.
It's certainly going to be a lot of rain, but first we have to get through this storm making landfall as a major hurricane, and then it's basically going to stall out, basically.
Potentially. It's not going to be dragged around a little bit, but overall it's not going to be moving all that much. And that's because of those weak steering currents.
It's going to be a long 18 hours, I assume. Really, probably a long 2 days or more for Mexico.
Well, we'll keep talking about that, but looking quickly there at some satellite imagery of PTC 9. Certainly looks like a little bit of rotation on that left-hand side there. Is it the center of circulation? Is this certifiably a tropical storm yet, guys? What do we think?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Not yet.
I don't think so. I don't think so yet, obviously. Looking at the storm right now, let me just pull it up. It's taking a bit to load. But what I've seen from the storm, it's not a perfectly closed low. It's not a perfectly closed system. It's still have some openings towards the center. And I believe that's still the case. This storm still needs some work in order to turn into a proper tropical cyclone, you could say.
Yeah, it's half there. Recon were active in the storm earlier. They're not in there right now, unfortunately. But earlier on, they captured, a pretty ambiguous central area. I believe that the winds that they got would be representative of at least 40 miles per hour. I was intrigued to see that National Hurricane Center didn't do that at their last advisory, 35. They'll probably bump it up at the next advisory. Maybe, I don't know actually. They might just keep it as it is. But I imagine there will be some significant developments fairly soon. I know the models have been jumping off the deep end. Well, some of them have. Interesting to talk about that without going into too much detail, Maury. We're looking at the hurricane models that have been pretty crazy, but the global models possibly backing down slightly this evening.
I did notice that. is a few models like the ECMWF, which yes, of course they do downplay certain events, but they I think from the last run, I think from the last run, well, maybe not so much for the ECMWF. I do notice now that it's kind of shifted the same, mostly
Okay.
for the GFS. If we look at the latest GFS model, you can
Just a
see it
sec.
makes a 966 millibar landfall, and the last model said a 950 millibar landfall, and it would strengthen before that to 947 millibars, which
That's
is
right.
a 16 millibar difference. That is definitely a strong definitely intense weakening from the models. However, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure if this is going to be consistent.
Well,
I
that's
do
it.
think,
We need run-to-run consistency. Yeah.
yeah, I do think that this is going to be it's going to eventually change back higher, or it's going to stop downtrending. It's going to probably stick around 960s a little bit. It could, I have seen certain events like this where it could start, it just goes up and down a lot of the times, and it could start uptrending again. However, I'm not so sure if that will be the case
Yeah,
with this one.
but it's a tough one to judge. But of course, as we've heard, from Soham in this morning's stream, until we get an actual tropical storm centered properly, we get recon data, which we already have had some recon data, but recon data as a TC. I think that's when the models really start to home in on exactly what's going to happen, especially structure-wise. I mean, from what we're hearing, it sounds like it's going to be potentially quite a large system. But what the aggressive models have been preying on here is for the storm to get a tight core in there early. Allowing it to rapidly intensify as soon as overnight tonight, and potentially get to major hurricane status before it reaches the Yucatan or passes through the Yucatan Channel. So those are some of the milestones to be looking out for, whether it actually gets to, well, first of all, whether it gets to, say, 60 miles per hour or something like that by late morning tomorrow, the 11 a.m. advisory maybe, and then whether it can get to major hurricane status by the time it reaches the Yucatan Channel. We'll talk about this more later on, but let's take a look back at some more imagery of John right now. Once again, looking really good on this satellite imagery. Let's see if we can talk to Christian. You were with us for a short while this morning. Quite a significant change as we look at it now.
Yes, I was on this morning's stream where I believe John was only a tropical storm. And I've only just learned that it's now a category 2. It's like, where on earth did that come from?
It was coming though. Were you watching it from the beginning of that?
Yeah, I did see it coming. It's just, not so soon, that sort of thing. And I just want to ask again, what's the status on 9L right now? The last I heard it was a PTC, but I'm seeing reports that it's now been designated a tropical depression.
It has not.
It has not. Okay. Why am I seeing reports that it is then? Are they messing with me?
That's normal of RAM to do that.
Yeah, RAM are doing that. I don't know if that's what you're looking at.
No, this is not a tropical depression yet. This is
okay.
To repeat, this is not a tropical cyclone just yet.
Okay, good.
Not really going to make much difference in this particular scenario, though. But I want to talk about the ADT for John that we're looking at here. Obviously, satellite estimates. Sim's ADT is a little bit wonky, about 80 knots. But NOAA ADT is a little bit more on the money, in my opinion. 105 miles per hour, 90 knots on that latest ADT. So that's a pretty decent. T5.0, RAW 5.2 and increasing. So certainly going to get 105 miles per hour the next advisory. I think it ought to be more. Ethan, do you think they'll push for more?
I do think they will.
and that they're expecting 120 miles per hour. Does it feel to you? It feels to me as it's going faster than expected. Look at it right now. It's almost on the coast.
It probably is still going a little bit faster than expected, but that's probably because there is still a significant amount of uncertainty. The storm could honestly make landfall tonight, honestly.
Oh yeah.
That's entirely possible.
And when you say tonight, Ethan, is that like within the next 6 or 12 hours?
Within the next 6 hours, yeah.
6 hours. All right. Yep.
Could be other than that.
Yeah, and I've been watching the distance tick down here from roughly the center of the eye. If people remember this morning's stream, we were talking about 161 kilometers from land. Now it is a mere 35, and when I started planning the stream just over 2 hours ago, it was 50. So it's closed in another 15 kilometers in just over 2 hours. With only 35 kilometers remaining, if it kept going straight to land, that would only be about 5 hours until landfall, so that would very much be in the late evening tonight. Of course, it could veer a little bit further towards the northwest there, and you can see just how the coast is. Obviously, you've got that little point there. That's Punta Maldonado, very close to where the storm is, and that could be a possible landfall location here if it does move just that little bit towards the northwest, which it looks like it might have just done at least a little bit of a jog there. Very interesting how this forecast has changed over time, though, isn't it? Because Ethan, yesterday they were going northeast, and now they're going northwest after landfall.
I know it's still a very uncertain situation.
But really rapid weakening once it does move in.
Oh yeah. Oh blimey. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. The cones only just popped up onto my screen because of stream delay, and yeah. Wow. That
Yeah, it is.
It's not got very long. Once it gets inland. And it's really close.
I'm still not convinced that there's 100% chance it'll actually make landfall. I mean, you look at the southern end of the cone there, there's still room for it to wriggle out towards the west. I think it's getting more likely as we watch it move a little bit quicker. But I would still say it's not a 100% chance. But with the eye being so close to land, looks like hurricane conditions and the strongest winds will be unavoidable. NATO Rat, thanks very much for your support, by the way. Is there chances for tropical storm force winds in central Florida? I don't know if you saw the board. We've been showing the percentage chances on the left-hand side. You'll see it eventually if we keep this screen up for long enough. But it doesn't... we ran out of room, so we didn't really include the rest of Florida at this point. But I can tell you myself what those chances are for a few select locations. So, chances of storm force winds. So Tampa was listed at 39%. Orlando is at about 24%. Jacksonville further north, obviously, that's about 28% up there. Lakeland, about 29% there. Cape Coral, about 35% chance. St. Petersburg, obviously, a little bit further out from Tampa, of course. That is up to around 46-47%. In Clearwater, one of the largest towns out west, about 55% chance there. Of course, the highest chances are in the Bend region, where there's a few little points there that are now getting up to 70%. I think that is 70% point. Yeah. So those chances definitely increasing. But the highest chance for PTC 9 in terms of track right now is between the Yucatan Channel, and that is certainly a cause for concern with less land to hinder it.
And again, I just want to ask again, it's not really the focus of the stream here, but how's 91C doing?
Oh, you know what? I haven't even looked at that thing. There's the chances on the left right now for PTC 9, by the way. just whilst I'm getting some extra imagery here. So this is the system that, that certainly the CPHC were touting with a high chance to become the next storm. I was never very convinced about it. I don't know why they ever went with such a high chance. Well, there it is now, not looking so good. I think the chances for that are over. I don't know what they've gone with now.
That's gone. I can have a look for you if you'd like.
Yeah.
Uh,
But they had it a high chance yesterday. Ethan, do you remember? Was it 80%?
yeah, it was red as far as I remember. I don't know the exact percentage, but what they've gone for now is 30-30.
30-30,
So
there it is.
it's back down to yellow.
It's gone. So Iona fans, you are out of luck. But
We'll be waiting for another 5 years for
let's
Iona.
hope not. If we move this map further towards the east there, you can actually see both systems on the same picture. And you can clearly see John and its eye really starting to get fleshed out. And then off towards the right-hand side there, sort of half of a storm going on. West side needs to build up a little bit more. Interesting to see whether they will go with a tropical storm or not. I've seen worse, it has to be said. Certainly that kind of system that you tend to see in the Western Caribbean that is always very sloppy to begin with, and sometimes they take flight, other times they end up like Colin. Let's have a look at some other type of imagery here. Very similar, but I thought I would show you this too. And actually, I wonder if we might be able to take a look at the mesoscale from GOES 18 on here. This will show us John, if it will load for me.
Sorry to interrupt
Here it is.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, this isn't exactly storm related. I've just had a tsunami advisory pop up for for the islands of Tokyo Prefecture in Japan.
Really?
I'm trying to dig for what this is about because it's not telling me what it is.
Alright, we'll look into that straight away.
Hmm.
Everything seems to happen at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing anything significant.
Yeah, it's not significant. It's just popping up on my feed. Like it's the islands that are part of Tokyo Prefecture. It's not Tokyo itself. It's the islands. I don't know what's caused it. It literally just flashed up on my phone right now.
Maybe a false alarm.
Maybe a drill, maybe a test. Could be anything. I just thought I'd bring this to attention because if it's real, it's quite serious.
Well, we're not seeing anything yet, so we can't confirm anything.
No, but these are tsunami advisories. These are not warnings.
Okay.
I'm just wondering what's going on.
So, in the meantime, we'll cut back to John. Here it is on late visible imagery. Look at that appearance. Certainly the eye trying to appear more deep there. Southeastern side looks like the weakest there. I'm not sure whether it might even have a slight opening or not, but certainly blowing up large amounts of convective tops around that southwest and the land facing side there on the northern side of the eye as well, really blowing up some significant amounts. You zoom out a little bit and you'll see the full picture of the storm, and all of those areas to the north of that eye wall. Those are some real areas of concern for some very, very high rainfall amounts. We are expecting in some areas up to and above 40 inches of rain, 1,000 millimeters, and in some areas it could be approaching double that in the next 7 days. So you've got the winds, but really rainfall as well. Absolutely insane rainfall potential. Let's add the infrared overlay to this so you can see things a little bit more possibly clearly, but certainly looking quite impressive on that imagery. Certainly has looked like it might have had a slight weakness on that northwestern side as well there, but overall it is clearly a intensifying storm, and we're just a little bit thankful here that it hasn't completely bombed out, and everyone comparing it to Otis, but it's not going to get as strong as that unless something really strange happens, like it stalls and continues to rapidly intensify as it does so. But at the moment, it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
Yeah, more information on the tsunami advisory. Apparently, it was caused by a 5.9 earthquake in Torishima Island region.
Okay.
Again, this advisory, they are for, what was it, Izu Islands and Ogasawara Islands. Again, it's not telling me like what the Japanese Shindo thing is. It's just telling me 5.9 magnitude.
Okay.
Again, more information will come in the coming minutes.
So a fairly sizable earthquake there. Let's talk to Jose. You're in Florida ahead of this upcoming storm. Not the first one that you've been on track to receive this year, is it?
Well, I think I did the live Ian live coverage and Nicole. I think so. I'm not sure.
I really can't remember anymore.
Yeah,
What do you
probably.
think of this thing then, 9L?
Well, I mean, as of now, it's just mostly like it's a little concerning for mostly the residents, of the Panhandle because, after, Hurricane Michael, which pretty much was like a while ago, but yet I heard there's still some areas that haven't still fully recovered. And mostly, the residents of Fort Myers are still recovering from Ian. And now, I would think a month and a half earlier, we had Debbie. So pretty much is like a lot of things going on right now.
Apparently, I'm sorry. Apparently, Christian, our own earthquake channel is reporting 5.5 over there somewhere.
Interesting. Wonder where they're getting that source from. Again, I think 5.9 is coming from the JMA. I'm not sure where 5.5 is coming from. Probably USGS.
It's not going to be massive news, that one. But if you are interested in the earthquakes, we do have our 24/7 earthquake stream on Force 13 Earthquakes as well. So make sure to check that out. But as of right now, I mean, what are we guys really thinking then? Maury, what do you think about 9L's peak intensity?
I understand that a lot of people are saying that it's going to be much stronger than I think it actually is going to be. I think the reason for that is just because there's a lot of potential with this system because it's in the environment, I guess, and also because it just hasn't happened this year yet. I mean, people are expecting this to be a hyperactive season, and it just hasn't really played out.
I thought the word was that everyone's given up on that.
Everyone's given up. Yeah.
Because everyone's so fickle about this damn thing. But this is still near peak season. Everyone's just been, they've just given up on the season when there's still several weeks of prime activity to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still saying that. I do think that this still has a lot of potential, but I do think some people are overhyping it. So, what I personally think the system might do, I think the maximum for it is like mid-range category 4. I think that's the maximum, I think.
Let's take a look at this. These are the multi-model diagnostics. You can just about make out on the left-hand side there behind me that those hurricane models, the HFSA and B, which were off their rocker today, going for about 185 miles per hour. There's some, but the big thing about that is the big difference, the key really, as to why they've gone for such a strong storm compared to the other models, is that wind shear is delayed on those models. So if they have their way, it's going to be down to when the wind shear really picks up. The various models there going for different particular times, sometime throughout the 26th. Now, I've already lost track of my days, but that's Thursday, isn't it?
It's a Tuesday, yes.
So
well, it's past midnight over here, so it's a Tuesday.
So we're talking about Thursday. That's the lead up to landfall. So it really seems as though wind shear will skyrocket on that build up. If you follow the HWRF, interestingly, that's the first model to have the wind shear really steeply rising in the early to middle part of Thursday. Landfall is probably going to be very late Thursday night or early Friday morning. So the more time that we've got that wind shear building, then obviously that will weaken the storm a little bit. It certainly looks to me as though there'll be a fair amount of wind shear by the time it makes landfall, and so I would say it's unlikely that the storm makes landfall at peak intensity. However, it still may be not far off its peak intensity, within a category maybe, by the time it actually does make landfall. I also want to note there on that track on the bottom left, the grey one is the official National Hurricane Center track, and they've actually gone a little bit to the west of the envelope of the model runs there. So that's quite interesting. SSTs, obviously, sea surface temperatures, they're never going to be an issue for this storm. It's going to be 30 degrees plus all the way. Relative humidity also looking very good until after landfall. So the only thing stopping 9L is itself and the wind shear if it perks up towards the end. So it's going to be really critical. Is it going to arrive in time to tear apart the storm before it makes landfall? Well, that's what we're going to find out.
Time will tell.
What's that?
Time will tell.
Yeah, indeed. Within the next half hour, we'll have more updates from the National Hurricane Center. They'll be updating on both storms because obviously there are warnings for both systems, so they will be running intermediate advisories. They'll also be pushing out new tropical weather outlooks because there is a few other systems, or at least a couple. You've got the 70% chance here in the eastern Atlantic for another system potentially forming there, likely to stay in the central Atlantic though, shouldn't affect land. And then in the eastern Pacific behind John, you've got this area here, but they've put it down to 0%, no longer expected to develop. And then, as mentioned, 30% in the central Pacific. Those chances went way down. That used to be a high chance. That doesn't look like it's going to develop. So all that coming up from the National Hurricane Center soon, and we'll carry those updates live. We'll take your questions. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. We continue to watch John fizzle out on this particular imagery as we lose the visibles. Let's go to this one, which shows, once it loads, it will show John a lot better. Meteo First says, what do we think of the possible Tampa Bay impacts as of now? So according to the forecast, it looks like it will be a glancing blow, and I would say probably avoid hurricane force winds as it stands, unless we get an easterly jog. Skelly the Titan says, we told John to shut up too much, now it's back for revenge. That's an old Force 13 meme there. I'm surprised it took that long for it to ever come up.
I'll be honest, I was thinking of a shut up John joke, but I got beaten to the punch.
I'm surprised it took them that long. Anyways, a few other interesting comments there as well, and we're not doing any pre-naming either, so it is 9L. So many people are calling it the next name already. It's just something we don't do.
PH name.
Dawson says, will John's outflow shear PTC 9? No, it's too far away and there's a big landmass in the way, so it's not going to happen. Look at this imagery right now, though, that we've been looking at for the last couple of minutes. That is clearly a westward jog here.
Ah, intriguing. So that could delay landfall by a couple of hours.
In those last few frames, the storm hasn't moved any closer to land. It's been sidestepping it. Once again, I think it's within the realms of possibility that John might just turn left and, at least for the time being, avoid landfall. It's not going to do another bit of a gamey on us, is it?
Was it gamey? Yeah, it was gamey.
But one or two storms have done this kind of thing before. Most of them plow into land.
I guess
but
this is
there are some
Sorry.
exceptions.
this is what happens when you tell it to shut up.
That was rubbish.
I'm actually I wasn't even a joke. I was being serious. Like, you know.
Okay.
I mean, Christian's got a point.
It's only a short loop at the minute, but clearly a westward jog there with John right now.
I'm just trying to imagine how big PTC9 will be by the time it gets near Florida. Because the only one problem I'm going to be dealing with is tropical storm force winds here. So,
Sure
yeah.
looks that way.
Yeah, pretty much. And I hope it doesn't move. I hope it doesn't get any stronger. I don't know, but time will tell. I'm just waiting for this hurricane to come through. And yet, but I hope everyone in the panhandle's, preparing.
I don't think I'm getting any more information on this tsunami advisory.
You probably won't, to be fair, Christian.
No. I mean, I'm not counting on it. I'm just surprised.
It's not a massive earthquake.
True, but like, what's puzzling me is why is there no Japanese Shindo intensity? Normally there would be.
I don't know. If you've just joined us, let's do a little recap. This is the latest imagery of Hurricane John, which continues to intensify. The eye starting to get a little bit deeper there still at this point as well, with cloud tops continuing to really push up on that northern side, especially right now. I would say it is at least a borderline major hurricane at this point, and it would not be a surprise if the National Hurricane Center did run with that Category 3 status at the upcoming advisory due in 20 minutes. So that there is obviously Hurricane John. Some westward movement there in those latest frames. We'll see if that keeps up. And this is PTC9, potential tropical cyclone. There'll be an update on this shortly as well. It's nearly a tropical storm. Whether they'll push the trigger at this update, they probably won't. But I would say overnight tonight, we will see our next named storm. And
When is the next update?
It's just coming up. And it's also expected to be a major hurricane when it arrives in Florida late Thursday night, is our expectation at the moment. Let's cut back to Jose's screen, showing you the earliest reasonable arrival time for tropical storm winds, along with those wind probabilities there in the colours. The darkest shade of red there, that's 80%. The yellow starts at 30% there. And you can see there for most of those areas, once again, earliest reasonable arrival time for those winds, that's before the centre of the storm arrives, Thursday morning. So if the storm does get a shuffle on, it could be as early as that. But at the moment, I would suggest that the most likely, if in fact you can shift it to most likely there, Jose, I imagine they're going to say afternoon. Yes, the middle one. Change it.
It won't let me. There we go. It won't let me change for some reason.
Yeah,
Just
so...
please no pre-naming in the chat. This system is 9L, not the next name.
Pre-namers are going to
9L,
pre-name.
please.
Late morning, possibly early afternoon there is the most likely arrival time for the Panhandle area. Of course, for those other areas of Florida, obviously depends where you are. The Keys, for instance, it could be Wednesday evening, not too far away, and that's why they've issued tropical storm watches. And on that subject, let's reiterate those watches and warnings for both storms right now, whilst we wait for the upcoming advisories. For Hurricane John, there is a hurricane warning for east of Acapulco to Bahia de Huatulco, out towards the east. Tropical storm warning for east of Bahia de Huatulco to Salina Cruz. And whilst we're just talking about that, we've still got that webcam out there as well at Huatulco, which is on the edge of that hurricane warning zone. Obviously, it looks like the storm is now going to move considerably west of this location, and no surprise to see that there are people out in the water, even though they're on the edge of a hurricane warning. Still not the wisest thing to do, but to be fair, it does look relatively calm. Now, in the Atlantic, of course, for PTC 9, as we wait for that next advisory, the latest is that there is a hurricane watch. Let's just look at the cone whilst we talk about this for Cabo Cotoche to Tulum, Mexico, and the Cuban province of Pinar del Rio. Tropical storm warning for Rio de Gatos to Tulum, and the Cuban provinces of Artemisa and Pinar del Rio, and the Isle of Youth. And a tropical storm watch for Dry Tortugas and the Lower Keys south of the 7 Mile Bridge. So, a lot to talk about with both of these systems. Massive rain threat from, of course, John, because in some areas here they could be looking at up to above 40 inches, 40 inches of rain, 1,000 millimeters. I'll open the floor to the team right now. What's on your mind, guys? Either storm, what would you like to talk about?
Primary hazards. I know we have this feature in storm updates.
Yes. Well, I was supposed to make a storm update earlier, but the models weren't working. The primary hazard was still going to be flash flooding because of that enormous rainfall expectation.
I mean, rip currents are still a hazard.
Always, yeah.
Yeah, not a primary hazard, but still a hazard nonetheless.
Yeah, it is hard to pick just one. Of course, there's all kinds of
Yeah.
hazards from this.
Yeah, so those people on the webcam there, hopefully they won't get taken out.
It looked pretty sedate over there, to be fair. And here is a look at both of these systems there. Well, a close-in look at John, infrared, and a wide shot of the Central American region showing both systems. John really looking quite impressive from a distance there on visible.
If I could not get an ad break during this live stream, that would be great. Yeah.
Ethan, have you got any hints on upcoming recon, and also whether they're actually ever going to do a recon flight into John?
John, I don't think they will. 9L, I don't know when the next one is. I'm actually working on a tropical weather outlook
Oh, I
for
see.
Fortune Team Twitter.
I will be honest, I was very surprised that they cancelled recon into John earlier. Very surprising. I don't know if they've ever done that before.
Oh, I'm sure
They have. I'm not really sure why they canceled recon. You can guarantee that the government of Mexico, if this does end up being like a really bad storm, that they are not going to be happy.
No, no one's going to be happy.
Definitely not.
Because obviously, I mean, they've pretty much prioritized the Atlantic over anything else.
They're
Now-
they're prioritizing a PTC over a Category 2.
True.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like everybody does though nowadays.
Now, we showed you the chances of development for those other systems earlier. I don't know if it was updated already at that point, but the updates have come through. They haven't changed, or at least from what we showed you before, those haven't changed. So 70% for the Eastern Atlantic system and near 0% for the system near John. So no chance for that one now. And 30% for that Central Pacific system that was formerly a high chance. That one hasn't updated yet, the Central Pacific one. I assume that those chances are only going to go down, though.
Just want to point out, that's actually been an invest for 2 days.
Yeah, 91C. we did talk about it earlier again. What the NHC's website currently has right now is 30-30, but those chances are most likely going to go down.
Well, that's from the Central Pacific Hurricane Center, which they haven't updated yet.
Yeah, I'm seeing people in the chat are saying it's now 10-10. Again, I'll believe it when
well,
I
it
see
could
it.
be. It could well be.
It could very well be, but I'll believe it when I see it. So just give them time to update,
Yep.
I guess.
Yep, 10-10.
10-10. Where
There you
are
go.
you guys seeing this information? It still says 30-30 on my end.
Refresh your page.
I have. It still
Do
says
it
30-30.
again.
What
No.
what issuance time do you have on your on the
It says 8:10 a.m. HST.
Yeah, that's 2 p.m. Eastern.
2 p.m. Eastern. What time is it over there in Eastern right now?
It's 8 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, no, we
Okay.
still don't have the update here. It must be a British thing, Christian.
Nope,
Yeah.
I've got it on my end. They
'Cause,
say showers and thunderstorms have diminished with a trough of low pressure located southeast of
Oh, I
Hawaii.
know. But you Americans over there, you get the NHC updates first. You know, it's got to travel the ocean to get the internet feed through. I mean, that must take a few minutes,
It
right?
should be the speed. It should be no. It should be the speed of light.
All right, I'm just kidding,
It should be
Christian.
almost instant.
I was
Has
kidding.
Bell. Bill says 30-30.
No,
Maybe
you.
it has to get to the sun and back.
I'm just gonna say
That's
there's a couple
16
of
minutes, isn't it?
I would just say there's a couple of lightnings around. I think near the eye,
No, it still says
PTC.
30-30, even if I refresh the page.
unless I'm wrong.
Did you say it had an eye?
No, like near the center. My bad, not the eye.
Some
Unless
lightning.
I'm wrong with the center-ish. Yeah, some lightning.
Can you animate
Unless I'm wrong
this?
with the center location.
Well, low and mid-level centers are probably well. They don't look like they're stacked very well at all. Now that could be a mid-level center there. That little sort of eye-looking thing that isn't one, but the low-level center is probably on the very edge of all this convection on the left-hand side. Now we did have some comments as well, so let's go and take some of these. The newer runs for the Hurricane models on 9L seem to be trending weaker. Our thoughts? Well, it is just one run, just like the stronger ones were just one run. We're looking for consistency, so keep seeing what the models put out. And how bad will PTC 9 affect Tallahassee? At the moment, with this landfall, anything is up for grabs there. So got to keep watching that very closely over there.
And Nathan, just sorry to interrupt, but like just for everyone to know, just remember that this track could change. I think we all remember it by Ian, how everyone in Tampa were so prepared because they were so focused on a track. Then I think after a new advisory, the track shifted way down north.
Have to interrupt. Updates out on PTC 9, 35 miles per hour, 1,002 millibars.
Yep.
Disturbance to become a hurricane by Wednesday. Location 18.3 degrees north, 82.3 degrees west, or roughly 100 miles southwest of the Grand Cayman, moving north-northwest at 7 miles per hour.
And
To repeat, that's on PTC 9. That is not on John.
Yep. Tropical storm warning issued now for Grand Cayman, which I'm really not surprised about. You know, they might have wanted to do that sooner, really, but I guess they were just waiting to see what would happen. It certainly looks like it's going to get the TS data soon. Certainly has the winds anyway. I think so. They've kept it at 35, however, but tropical storm warning for Grand Cayman.
Updates out on John. Eye wall of John very near the coast. Damaging hurricane force winds, life-threatening storm surge, and flash flooding are imminent. Maximum sustained winds have increased to only 105 miles per hour with higher gusts. Moving north at 8 miles per hour.
This is not 105 miles per hour.
Moving north, did you say? What compass direction is that? Like 355?
Yeah,
or
350, which is slightly west of north now.
Yeah.
But Ethan, your reaction on, I'm sure you're going to agree with me there. It's surely higher than 105.
I mean, you'll see what I'm going with on the tropical weather outlook here.
What's that?
You'll see what I'm going on the tropical weather outlook here shortly.
Right.
it's at least a borderline category 3, if you ask me. But the National Hurricane Center running with 105 miles per hour. No changes in the warnings. In any case, obviously, as they said, the eye wall is very near the coast. Damaging hurricane force winds and life-threatening storm surge and flash flooding are imminent.
If you can, Nathan, get up the forecast cone.
Oh dear.
Yeah, let's
Excuse me.
bring these cones back. We'll have them
On John specifically.
hopefully have it updated. Have they done that yet? I've not got it yet, but you'll see what they do with intermediate advisories. They don't change the forecast, but they will do a position update. So if you see the cone looking a bit janky, it's because, and it will, I bet you it will actually, looking at this, because it's gone a little bit north and west, so it's going to look pretty silly, I imagine, when the new cone appears.
I've got it on my end.
What advisory
Yeah,
number is this that they've just come out with?
Yeah, I'm on the experimental. They've got the standard version out. Let me show you this. This is quite interesting. Look at that. I mean,
it was interesting.
clearly showing you where it is compared to that forecast. It's they're going to have to really change that forecast.
Yeah.
I don't know why sometimes they do this, but I'm just gonna accept that.
And what was this? What was the advisory number that they just came out with?
That is 6A.
6A.
Honestly, I think it could make landfall closer to Acapulco.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's
more
what I
west
think
of
as well.
forecast right there. So what does that tell us? Well, it's weak steering currents once again, but certainly more trending westwards. And I still maintain that it's a possibility that it will never make landfall, or at least not in this initial phase. That it might just stall around, and I don't know what it would do next, because they've not thought about that in the forecast. If it continues a more sustained westerly motion, which it started to embark upon this evening, what's next for John? There's the update on the experimental cone, just showing you how silly that looks. Obviously they don't update the cone, they just update the position, and basically that M point there is what they expected it to look like at midnight tonight, local time. So it is almost as north as almost in line with where it's supposed to be at midnight. So clearly moving faster than expected, and also more towards the west. Very interesting there on John. And for what it's worth, let's take a look at the new cone for PTC 9. Now that's gone a lot more to plan, actually, according to their forecast. If anything, maybe a little bit slower than expected. There it is, north-northwest at 7 miles per hour. I don't know if slower is better for this storm or not. I don't know if that wind shear will be creeping in at that time regardless, or whether it's just when the storm heads up towards Florida. But I would imagine that it's, right now having more time is probably a bad thing for the storm. For us, rather. A good thing for the storm. Anyways, there it is, that latest cone. Our thoughts on those latest updates, guys?
Interesting on John.
Do you want to go into that?
Well, we can start off by going to the TWO that I have on my screen.
Oh, okay. Just getting there, just a second. I'm not surprised in the slightest that Ethan's gone with a category 3 for John there, 115 miles per hour. I can't say I disagree, though, to be honest. So, I'd be relatively on board with that forecast.
I saw that Justin
update.
about an hour ago said that we have officially have Tropical Depression 9.
We don't.
Oh man,
We don't.
no.
Mm.
We all got a fact check, guys.
But yes, major
Check and
hurricane
check
on
again.
John. I think this is well warranted considering the current satellite imagery when you look at that, as well as microwave passes, which suggests that the storm has a very strong core and is going to make landfall probably as a major hurricane. How strong? I'd say at least 115 miles per hour. There is still the off chance that, due to how close the storm is now to Mexico, that it might not strengthen at all anymore. There is that chance. There is still even the chance that it might weaken a little bit. There is still that chance. Remember, technically Otis weakened from 165 to 160 mile an hour at peak. I mean, that's only 5 miles an hour, but that's still weakening as it came in.
Not by much, though, but yes.
No, it didn't make a difference at all, but
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference.
Thing is,
Honestly-
though, it's more difficult to sustain that kind of strength than it is at borderline category 3. So
And then
I think
what
John's
the
got
heck?
a good
What
chance.
the heck? Sorry, is 9293W?
Yeah, what is that?
they've got 92W is officially near the Gulf of Tonkin, and literally just to its northeast is 93W.
Hmm.
I've kind of marked them as the same area of interest, even though they're two separate invests.
Sometimes the Westpac just gets
they're-
too confusing. and I
They're
give up.
they're not gonna form. They're right on the coastline of China. Wind shear is blasting them away.
Yeah.
They're not gonna form.
I-
91W might try to do something near Guam. That might try to do something, but I'm
Hmm.
not doing a whole lot of that.
I dropped
91C
everything
is-
in the Westpac, Ethan, because it was just too confusing.
91C might try to do something, but it's running on borrowed time. And of course, we got 9L in the area of interest. That is probably going to be 98L out by the Cape Verde Islands. That one, if that one forms, that one is probably it has a chance to become a hurricane. That one, but thankfully, that one will recurve out to sea.
Yeah.
It looks almost certain that one will recurve out to sea. Thankfully.
Yeah.
Very good.
There was a comment earlier about whether we're going to be doing models tonight. Well, we are. We're just going to be dragging things out a little bit more because I think we're going to be running for the 2 hours tonight rather than one that we did this morning. But we're continuing to look at John here, which is very close to the coast, but being a little bit elusive in these latest frames because it has certainly taken a pronounced jog towards the west. It is still 30 kilometers away from land, so I think last time we checked about half an hour ago, it's moved about 5 kilometers, I think, in that time. But most of that movement has been in a more westerly direction.
Shall we go to the models then?
Just a moment. Just do some distances first. In particular locations, 34 kilometers from Punta Maldonado. It is 158 from Puerto Escondido, and it is 171 from Acapulco. I remember when it was like 300 kilometers, and now just 171. So definitely getting closer. Am I on your screen? I am. Let's go to Ethan.
We're going to start with John first.
All right.
Makes it nice and easy, right? So here's the HWRF. We'll start off with or should we do the GFS first?
It's up to you.
We'll send it with the GFS first. Then we'll do the regional hurricane model. So here's John. GFS, I imagine, is going to handle this very poorly, and it does. Sort of just kind of capitulates John, which is the forecast. Sort of does something. You can see.
No, that's the thing. Is it still John there? It might be.
Yeah, I mean, it is the outside chance. You can see there's 9L, 966 millibars, significantly higher than recent runs, has to be said.
Wonder why. If you just roll it back there, does it actually hit the Yucatan this time? Nearly.
No. It's very close. But you can see a lot of the moisture associated with John stays there for a good long time. So they are going to not be they're going to be dealing with this rainfall threat far beyond John. So although the rainfall forecast for John says 30 inches around there, or maybe even a little bit more, it's probably going to be closer to 40 or not more.
Well, exactly. I mean, as I said, the GFS is maxed out my WSV3 graphics, and they go up to 72, Ethan.
Wow.
One or two spots
Well, we've seen
there.
the GFS now for 9L. There's that. We'll go to the 12Z Euro. We'll focus primarily. I know everyone's going to focus on 9L, but we're going to focus on John here for just a second. Sort of takes it parallel to the coastline here, and then sort of loops it back around.
Oh no, that might be happening.
Does some weird loop stuff. That is entirely possible. We're going to have to wait and see what happens, though. But not a whole lot whenever it comes to John here. 9L on the Euro, you can see there getting into the 980s. Does go for a landfall pretty much right on the marker where the NHC has it right now, I believe. Let me just double check that.
I think so.
Maybe a little bit eastwards on this run than the NHC, but still as a pretty significant hurricane. It is worth noting that it's very likely that the GFS and the Euro aren't resolving the intensity of 9L correctly. You know, these models are what we call the lower resolution models. So, you know, you have your HWRF, your HAFS. They have a much higher resolution that they can model in versus the Euro and the ECMWF. Partially why they can go out so far. You know, you see these high resolution models. They'll only go out maybe 2-3 days. You know, the HWRF goes out to day 5, but not beyond that. And you have the GFS and the Euro, which go well beyond that. But of course, you got that advantage of their lower resolution, but you can go farther out. So of course, you got that kind of trade-off. We'll take the Canadian here for John. Immediate death for John, looks like. Very significant hurricane making landfall, albeit a lot farther west on 9L too. 975 millibar landfall here as it comes into the coastline.
Looks like Apalachicola there.
I'm not entirely sure. And we'll check the icon run here if we wanted to do this. Sort of just keeps John where it is. What is that?
John.
What is that on John?
No.
So much stalling.
Three loops and then plows into land. And takes 9L right into Tampa Bay. That would be a nice sight to see, wouldn't it?
Oh gee, that whole model run might have to be one for the what might have been there.
Oh jeez.
I mean, that's just great. 9 landfall right on Tampa Bay at peak. I mean,
wow.
Sure, like quote unquote, everybody wants that.
What's that pressure there?
969 millibars.
Even
Which,
a Cat 2.
That isn't the worst, but it still would make landfall right on Tampa Bay, which is not good.
Which we don't want that, obviously. I'm just
big storm
yeah,
surge.
we don't. Just
right. Let's send it. HWRF first up for John.
Yep. Oh,
really collapses the storm before landfall. Only makes landfall as a tropical storm. Believe it or not, that's not going to happen.
No, that hasn't happened.
That's not going to happen. And does it try to come back? I mean, maybe,
well,
maybe, but I don't really see it coming back personally. Not really a whole lot. H-Mon on John. I imagine we'll show a privilege. Oh God!
My!
It doesn't even make landfall.
Oh,
it just
goodness.
dives out right
John.
there.
Well, that would be nice, but it's back.
Oh, whoa.
Oh my!
And then it comes back as a hurricane and makes land. And
all of these
A lot of these models just don't seem to know what to make of this.
Does it make landfall?
This is weak steering currents right here. Almost every model we've looked at now are doing silly things with this.
Yeah.
A shame this isn't city range.
This is extremely uncertain, to say the least. So it's pretty much just we're just gonna be playing it by ear kind of situation.
Did it die just after that?
Yes, it died.
There it is.
Oh, yeah.
HAFS. Let's see what this one says. Imagine. Oh nope. Just pretty much around what NEC says.
And then it picks up on something else.
It tries to come back. I don't think that announced anything significant.
I think it's a separate system entirely.
And then
Looks
if you
like-
wanted to see it HAFSB, this is going to be
Oh, still a
major
bit
hurricane
further-
landfall.
further east.
Major hurricane landfall.
What's that timestamp for the landfall?
6Z,
6C. It's still
which is in
possible,
6
though.
hours. This is probably a realistic scenario, I would say. Albeit not with the winds and the pressure, but
Yeah.
you know.
In terms of timing,
And does it come back?
Yes.
No.
No, I mean something tries to come back, but no, nothing really. Right, going to the HWRF on 9L.
Alright,
You saw
everyone
it there for a
wants to
second.
see this, don't they?
Yes, everyone wants to see this. Struggles a little bit, but once he gets through the Yucatan Channel, then it really starts to take off. Not
Oh,
as much as
no.
recent model runs, though. You'll notice that down here, that it was having the 950s, 940s down here. It's up in the 970s now, low 970s, albeit. And then still takes off quite
Oh,
significantly.
look it go.
Landfall 934 millibars. That's probably a Category 4 landfall, probably 120, 125 knots. That'd be 140,
Yep.
145 miles per hour coming in here.
Wow.
And then
That
really,
would be a biggie.
and then look at the pressure, even into southwestern Georgia, still in the 940s.
what?
I'm not sure what the pressure was on Michael operationally whenever it was in Georgia.
I'm not sure about that.
I'm going to look back at this real quick because
Who's
I
that?
know.
By the way, that
yeah.
would be the strongest landfall in that area.
Whatever.
Yeah,
Blimey.
And this bend area, yes, it would be.
because Idalia set that record.
Yeah, and that was only a small major hurricane.
Oh, of course it did.
But yeah, the pressure of Michael whenever it entered Georgia was estimated to be probably in the high 920s, low 930s operationally.
Wow.
But then it rapidly rose up to 950s like an hour later. So
Right. Enough
probably,
of the
probably
adverts,
940s into Georgia, probably.
Hold on, I've got it for you. I don't know. 957 at the 0Z point. I don't know what it was in the interim.
I'm not sure, but still, like 955 millibars into central Georgia, that's quite significant.
Wow, very impressive.
970 past Atlanta. What is going on?
Yeah, that's a very
Yeah,
slow
see.
degradation there.
This is impressive on the pressure. This doesn't mean that the winds are going to stay up
Is it
there,
realistic though?
What's it? What's
I'm
when's it
not
gonna?
sure.
When's it gonna get up to 990 or something like
I'm
that?
not sure, but the model run's still loading. We'll have a look briefly now at the HMOD model run. You can see it even it has 970s into bloody Tennessee.
Kentucky.
That's crazy.
Go
But
through
for the
this
system's
slowly.
peak-
Go through this slowly because I want to see. Let's say 12Z tomorrow, Ethan. What's it got loaded up for that time? 12Z on the 24th.
Oh, on the 24th.
Because I'm just intrigued to see what kind of start it needs to have if it's going to keep up. That's 45 miles an hour, 996. So it's certainly not expecting rapid intensification soon.
No. I think that it's pretty clear that rapid intensification in the short term is not likely.
But what I'm saying is, earlier today, some of those crazy model runs were relying on the storm to start rapidly intensifying very quickly. But now they've caught on a little bit better. So whatever these models are going to be showing now is a bit more realistic than what they were showing earlier.
I would be inclined to agree. So here's
let's have
what
a
the
look.
HMON says. Here's what the HMON says. Takes it very far off towards the west. I'll go back to the HWRF because I want to see how far west that goes. Even that's pretty far off towards the west. The NHC right now takes the storm pretty close to Cuba, actually, like more so over here. So this would mean a very sharper turn toward the northeast. We'll go back to the HMON model run here. significantly intensifies in the Gulf of Mexico as expected.
Yeah,
Very strong Category 4 here.
Wow, really impressive.
By making landfall at a similar intensity to what the HWRF is showing, 120, 125 knots. That'd be 140, 145 miles per hour here. And then weakens fairly slowly. Even 980s into southwestern Indiana, even that'd be remarkable. I'm not entirely sure. You know, I'm gonna look this up actually. I want to see. I think the pressure record for a tropical cyclone, post or not, in my state, because I'm in Indiana, is Ike in 2008, I believe.
May well be, yeah.
I want to see how low Ike was whenever it moved through here. Where is the best track here?
One step ahead of you, 988.
988?
Yeah.
Lower even, 987.
Oh, 987.
Nope, you're right, 988. So this would be pretty much near Ike's record.
Yeah.
And even for that pressure, that's still going to have significantly higher winds. You know, it's not shown here, but there's still going to be some gusty winds around this. And I remember whenever Ike was moving on through here in 2008, there was a lot of wind damage. It caught a lot of people, not just in Indiana, but in Illinois and Ohio, especially off guard. It caught a lot of people off guard. And they had a lot of damage across this area. So I do worry that there might be some inland wind impacts that people aren't expecting from this storm as well. Given that the storm's pressure, at least modeled here, is going to be lower than initially expected inland. That's something to watch later on. We have to get through the storm's landfall first off.
Well, yeah. Go on then, keep going.
Yep, HAFSA. This will be a big one, I imagine. Brace.
Oh, what's going on?
Oh wow.
What's happened?
Never
there?
mind. I was completely wrong.
That's completely changed.
Yeah, only 85 miles per hour for HAFSA. I think this might be a dud run.
Possibly.
Be honest.
The big reason why there is because
Too broad.
in previous runs, yeah, it was very tight. This time it's really broad.
Really big eye.
Well, that's so
HAFSB.
fascinating.
Let's see if it says the same thing. Yeah, even it's saying a similar thing. Even weaker. No, 90 miles an hour here, but
Well, that's really interesting. So those people who were doomcasting with those particular models, they can't do that this run at least. But certainly still significant potential with this storm. You know, you look at this. You look at the prevailing conditions. It's all there for it.
there is something that I want to show here regarding the HWRF that I just looked at in a separate Discord server that I'm in. That is very interesting. I'm not sure where it is, but you can see here. So this is the 12Z model run, and you can see here at 18Z on the 26th. This is where the 12Z model run had this storm being positioned. Okay, you know, inland over southern Georgia. The latest HWRF model run. Whenever I click this button, it is going to show the exact same frame in the 18Z model run.
Yep.
Look at where that is. That is way slower.
Yes. But hold on a minute. Go back to the old one.
You can see landfall time on the 18Z run is at 21Z Thursday, and landfall Z here, that 15Z. That's a full 6 hours later of landfall time between just two model runs. That's incredible.
I mean, usually that's not incredible, but given the storm's very quick movement, it does make a big difference.
I just want to look at the HMON latest run and see what it's saying for landfall time. That one's saying even on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Even later.
But it always has been about midnight Friday morning.
What does HAFS say on its latest run? Even that's saying Friday. This one's saying Friday too, yeah. That one's saying Friday. What does GFS show? Friday.
They have been
Breezy
saying
Friday.
early Friday for a while, to be honest. So those I reckon those
Euro saying Thursday.
oh, those Thursday ones have
That's
always been anomalies, really. I think
that's very very interesting.
it sure is. Very interesting model runs. Let's take a look back at this latest imagery of Hurricane John. Once we get it to load, it will show you the final few visible images of the storm and what we're seeing on infrared. Oh yes, those last little visible images there before we get darkness.
And John has completely wrapped around its northern eyewall again.
Yeah, it's looking interesting. I don't really know what to make of it.
I'm
Has
gonna
this
pull
thing-
up. I would use WSV3 here for imagery, but of course it's not going to work. So I'm actually going to pull up the Force 13 website imagery
Nice.
because this is, I mean, it's just the next best I really got. It's just going to take just a second to load because I want to load up the latest frame of this, Nathan. I'm not sure if you're seeing this, but it's right at 0Z, the latest frame I'm seeing, and it's very
Okay.
impressive.
The imagery we're looking at here is also 0Z, but we'll take a look at yours as well. Might see something different.
Has it gone any closer to land?
I mean, the northern eyewall is basically right on shore.
Yeah. Let me just. I'm just eyeballing this very closely.
Here it is.
Hold on a sec.
Look at that.
Let's go to Ethan.
Look at that.
We're just getting
My
it loaded up.
goodness.
All right. Yep. There it is.
That's very impressive, and I'll even make it a GIF here.
Thank you.
That's very impressive.
Well, that goes to show that movement. It is paralleling the coast right now.
Yeah, it's definitely going. Yes.
I still do think in general it is north-northwest. I don't think that it's paralleling the coast just yet.
It
I
is.
still think that
Well,
it's
it
still moving
is in the last half hour, but
perpendicular.
it is just a jog right now. We'll have to wait and see if it gets more pronounced.
And the grand scheme of things, the storm is moving north-northwest right now, though.
It's doing what?
It is moving north-northwest still.
Yeah, pretty much. Average it all out.
But if anyone is expecting anything from the 3Z advisory suite, I would absolutely expect John to be a major hurricane. And I would also expect them to raise the peak of 9L even further. But up to what? That's the question.
I don't know though. I mean, they only went 105 with John. I mean, I'm still surprised by that, Ethan. It makes me wonder
Yeah,
if
I'm
they
not
actually
sure.
will.
I'm absolutely not sure what the reasoning is for them to go 105 miles an hour.
What have we gone with?
115.
One. Okay.
And I'd be happy to run with that, to be honest. It's at least a borderline major. Yeah, 115. I think that's pretty decent number to run with. Let's see if we can take a look at some more imagery here, and we'll take some comments in a second. But you can see once again the progression of the storm, also on that imagery from our website, moving slowly towards land, but certainly a pronounced curve. Oh wow, lots of people saying my lines for me there. Thanks for your support. Jesper, your comment there about Hurricane John almost doing an Otis. If it had been over water for longer, it most likely would have. Do you agree with that, Ethan?
I don't, actually.
Oh, I mean, you were also comparing it to Otis at times in the last 24 hours.
There have been some aspects that have to look like Otis. There have been. And there's also been some aspects that haven't. It's kind of like half and half. But with that being said, right now, I mean, I know that Soham this morning, I was listening in on my stream on the stream earlier on my way to work. I know that Soham was comparing this storm to Max from 2017.
Yes, that got a mention.
I still think that's a fair comparison. But really, is there any other storm that I would really compare this to? I don't think so. I mean, sure, you have Otis, maybe what we call a budget version of Otis, maybe. I mean, you could call it that. But this isn't going to be anything like Otis. This isn't going to be, a Category 5 at this point making landfall. If this storm, if the storm were to make landfall as a Category 5 at this point, it would have to basically make a miracle. It would have to significantly cool its cloud tops. It'd have to significantly warm its eye. It'd have to significantly improve its microwave appearance, all in the next 3 hours, and deal with land interaction with Mexico, which is very mountainous in this area.
Looking
and deal with
those,
sometimes dry air intrusions and seasonal perceptions of upwelling because it's moving very slowly. So that's not going to happen.
looking at those latest frames there, that's not like due west, is it? That it's moving.
No.
It's definitely it's definitely moving a lot more western than it
is.
was earlier. Like, what compass direction would you say that is?
That's a tough one. I mean, you gotta average it out. NHC went 350 degrees. Those latest frames, I would say it's closer to 320, maybe. But there was also a comment about any chance we can launch the automated streaming service or not. Well, we were planning to relaunch the automated stream this morning, but we're having server trouble and we're unable to launch it. All of the stuff is ready at our end. We cannot get it through to the server for some reason, and we don't know why. And
We just use OBS.
And I have no idea if it'll ever be fixed.
I could see if I get something up on the automated stream.
Well, if it can't be fixed, then yeah, we can. There's probably a bunch of ingenuity that we can create and get a different setup sorted out, but that will take time.
But regarding 9L for impacts in Florida, honestly, if you're anywhere within this circled area, I'm going to circle here, in Florida,
Just a
I would be
second.
watching for significant impacts from this storm.
I've not got you
You
up here. Let
basically
me
just-
go.
This is just coastal. This is just coastal.
Basically, just circled the entire state.
Oh, almost.
Pretty much. And you might be wondering, well, why have I included it down towards Fort Myers? Why have I included Orlando in this? Well, look at the forecasted wind radii.
That is big.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
So if you were to connect these with a line, sort of like a forecast cone.
Well,
kind
that's
of
why the
thing.
keys are under a watch now.
Yeah, you can see tropical storm force winds are absolutely going to be coming in here.
All the
course,
way
you
up
know
to
this.
forecasted all the way up to Jacksonville as well.
Yeah.
Jeez.
All the way up into Jacksonville. Fort Myers is going to get it. Naples is going to get it. Tropical storm force winds.
Basically,
And
all the
also,
way from Cape
as
Coral.
this storm, so basically, say that we have this hurricane position right here, and all hurricanes in the northern hemisphere spin counterclockwise. So we'll draw let's say that this is our hurricane right here that we have. You would have all of this onward flow from this hurricane, and that's going to push water all into this coastline, all even into the Keys. And even some parts might even try to wrap around because this is going to be a fairly large hurricane. So there is going to be some inflow even from the Bahamas. So there might even be some storm surge, maybe some minor storm surge over here on the eastern coast of Florida. That is entirely possible. And that is because Helene, at this point, whenever it gets in this Gulf of Mexico, sure, the core of this storm is going to be very small and it's going to be very localized. But when you look at the very big picture of these things, they are massive. They are not... there's a small, concentrated area of energy like tornadoes are. Hurricanes are massive storms that roam our planet.
Well, the
And
stronger
that
it
is
is
going
at that
to-
point, the more effect
Yeah.
it'll have there.
Yeah, that's going to push the impacts far out from the center of circulation. And I don't think that people realize that. Sure, Ian was a big storm, and sure, the impacts extended farther out towards Ian. And a lot of the focus on Ian was where it made landfall. But yes, you still had impacts in the Keys. You still had impacts up in Tampa. You had impacts up in Orlando. You're going to have impacts in inland areas. And areas like, especially farther inland into like Georgia, especially Atlanta. You even have Birmingham and Alabama, Montgomery too. Even areas as far inland as maybe South Carolina, maybe even into Tennessee and Kentucky, even into Indiana. These inland areas are still going to get something from this tropical cyclone. It's just a matter of what.
Take a breath, Ethan. Just someone on the chat there suggesting that Tampa was right next to hurricane force winds. Just to clarify, I think that's 50 knot winds, isn't it?
Yes, the purple the purple zone is going to be your 60-mile-per-hour winds. It's the pink area that's going to be your hurricane force winds, which unfortunately we don't have that data because the NHC only does that out to they only do hurricane force winds out to 48 hours and 50 knots out to 3 days or 72 hours.
In other words,
and they don't do it for day 4 and day 5.
In other words, I would say that hurricane chances for Tampa are pretty low at the moment.
Yes.
Yes, those are 50 knots, so they, again, not quite hurricane force, which is 64 knots.
But the key word with that is right now. Things can change. Tampa is still reasonably close to the forecast cone. So, the forecast cone is for the center of this storm. So you still could have this storm track on the eastward side of the cone and have a very large eye wall, and all of a sudden Tampa gets the eastern eye wall. That can still happen. So just because that you are in Fort Myers, just because you're in Cape Coral, just because you're in Sarasota, just because you're in Tampa and St. Petersburg, just because you're in all these areas that aren't in the forecast cone, does not mean that you are out of the clear from this storm at all. I want to make that very, very clear.
Again, it's not like the JCWC cones, which include like the wind radar. The NHC cones, they just cone where the center of the storm could possibly be.
Yeah, pretty much. Let's cut back to some latest imagery of John. Here it is, just getting the very last little few visible images there, and we're now really into the nighttime period at this point. The eye isn't deepening any further, so interesting to see that. Still wrapping around quite well with those cloud tops. Certainly appears to me as though strengthening is stalling, at least it's slowed down a lot. And I don't know whether we might be near the storm's peak intensity here.
For John, I think that there's a significant chance that we might be near the peak intensity for this storm.
Yeah, I think it's going to be peak at landfall, personally. I mean, I do hope that there's going to be some weakening involved from here on out. But you never know.
We don't know if it
With
will.
that being said,
landfall.
the CDO on John is right now, it is uniformly cooling, so maybe the peak of this storm is yet to be realized. Can't totally rule it out with these kind of things,
Interesting to watch. As we look at these more viewpoints here, let's switch back to this imagery as well, really showing you some close-ups of John as it gets that little bit closer to land. Just to give you another readout here, the very center of the eye is now 25 kilometers away from the coast. So that's not very far, 25 kilometers.
I mean, the edge of the eye wall looks very close. But that's the edge of the eye wall. Of the edge of the eye, even if I can speak properly,
and
not
that's
the
on
center.
satellite as well. It's about 12 kilometers. We don't really know what the actual number is, considering that I don't think there's radar here.
No, the Force Virginia website does not have radar.
Yeah,
I know that there is radar in the area, but I do think that it was in Acapulco, and we all know what happened in October last year.
Oh God, don't remind me.
I mean, you really think that the radar in Puerto Rico, whenever we went through Maria, that it got completely obliterated? You really think that it's going to survive Otis? Yeah, good luck.
Okay, let's see if we've got some more questions here. Feel free to send them in, though. Start your message with Force 13 all in text, and we can have a little to and fro. Not Mr. Popular says, any more live events planned for tomorrow? If so, when? We don't know yet, but I expect we will be live at various points, at least one point throughout the day. I don't know what the plan is yet, but we'll let you know. And another comment there saying that John looks like Beryl's final moments before the Texas landfall. Does it? I don't
Does
remember
it?
Beryl
No.
looking like that.
No.
No.
Apparently not. I can't even remember what Beryl looked like at landfall. So it was much larger than it was when it was near its peak. A broader centre. How cooked is Tampa if it keeps moving eastwards, referring to 9L, of course. Well, it would have to swing quite a bit further east to really cook Tampa. You can see there they're on the very edge of the forecast cone, so it is a possibility that the centre arrives there, but on the lower chance of that kind of thing. And another comment there about any analogues that we can think of for 9L. I'm sure there's some. Just that we can't think of any right now. I'm going to have a look though, so, at least from its current position. You guys not
Well,
think of any?
No. I mean, I don't really consider myself an expert in this field, so I would not be able to answer that question.
Alright, let me go and find some. So it's in a similar position to where Ian was. That's one thing. Interestingly though, Ian was already becoming a Category 1 hurricane when it passed Grand Cayman. So Ian was quite a bit ahead of PTC 9. Of course, though, Ian took a more direct route towards Florida. I'm trying to get up another one here as well. I'm trying to figure out what track that is. There's another storm track that's interesting. Oh yes. I mean, partially, you've got the hurricane of 1896, which took a very similar track from this point forward, although it already had an extensive track before now. It actually formed near Antigua, and it moved westwards. It brushed the south coast of Jamaica as a Category 1. It already reached Category 2 by this point near the Cayman Islands, and then it reached Category 3 and then rounded through the Yucatan Channel and then swung right up towards the Florida coast, made landfall very close to Cedar Key and continued northeastwards. So that's another one, sort of semi-analog. But in terms of, I don't know. I don't think there's anything that would perfectly fit this storm's track, and I guess that's variables for you. There's still plenty of different scenarios that can be played out. You think you've seen it all? Well, not quite.
Absolutely.
Let's see if we've got some more comments here as well. What's going to happen to disturbance near Cape Verde? Well, that's something that Ethan, you briefly mentioned earlier. That looks like it's going.
That one's going to go out to sea. ATCF have a major on John.
Have they?
Yes, 100 knots, 962 millibars. That's actually 1 millibar lower than what I went, actually.
Wow, that's quite amazing.
I'm pretty happy about that.
I wonder how they did that. Because ATCF, they don't usually make big calls like that without the NHC, and none of the ADT estimates are going for it yet. I'm just very intrigued by that. Certainly when we look at satellite imagery subjectively here, we think it's a borderline Category 3, but I'm not seeing anything that they would normally use that would suggest it yet. So interesting stuff there. Let's say some more comments. Mike says that Tampa is getting spared once again. Well, it's a bit early to say that. Very early to say that.
Incredibly.
People, we've gotten over the years into the habit of hyper focusing on the center of a storm when impacts can be unexpectedly large, quite far away from the storm. So it's going to be something you really need to keep watching over there, all along the west coast of Florida, really. I think all of you there will be under some kind of watch or warning later on down the line. Another comment there, an analog could be Idalia. I mean, sort of.
Maybe.
But not really.
Maybe.
Yeah, but yeah, you know,
Maybe.
I don't know.
I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket.
Analogs are there just to look at. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason that they'll be anything like all these analogs.
Every storm is a different storm. They're all going to behave differently. And
Alright.
that is one thing that I unfortunately hate the most about weather.
Really?
Every single thing is different.
You don't like that?
Well, I mean, it has its perks and it has its downsides. There's kind of a double-edged sword, kind of. You know, you've got one side where everything might be super predictable, and then you got one side where you might think that something's predictable, and well, it goes in the complete opposite direction. I.e., Otis last year.
Depends where in the world you are, of course. Some places have very stable weather. But anyway, let's just recap all of the latest information here. So, Hurricane John, it sounds like ATCF might be going for a major hurricane there. We were a bit surprised when the National Hurricane Center at the 6 p.m. Central Standard Time advisory, which was just last hour, only went with 105 miles per hour. 970 millibars, but potentially the ATCF may be saying now that it might be a major hurricane. A hurricane warning there is in effect as we look back at this very wonky looking cone here, because the position estimate has put it much further west of the forecast, making it look like that. East of Acapulco to Bahia de Huatulco, hurricane warning for you there, large area involved. Tropical storm warning for east of Bahia de Huatulco to Salina Cruz. And honestly, the way the storm's going, I'm pretty sure that warning will be lifted pretty soon. There's no chance really that the storm conditions are going to reach that area now as we look at that cone. As for the potential tropical cyclone 9, who knows what we're waking up to. Do you think it'll be named by morning, Ethan?
You know, I don't know.
No. I'm leaning towards yes there. But 35 miles per hour, the update, 1002 millibars. This was just earlier, 8 p.m. Eastern time, that update. They issued a new tropical storm warning for Grand Cayman. So that's for the first time there. Hurricane watch for Cabo Cotoche to Tulum, Mexico, and the Cuban province of Pinar del Rio. Tropical storm warning, of course, for Grand Cayman, as mentioned, and for Rio Legatos to Tulum, Mexico, and the Cuban provinces of Artemisa, and Pinar del Rio, and the Isle of Youth. And a tropical storm watch, those little yellow areas there for the Dry Tortugas and the Lower Keys, south of the 7 Mile Bridge. And you may think that's quite far away from where that storm's going, but we were talking about those wind fields, certainly could see storm force winds there. Just read out some rainfall expectations here from the Hurricane Center. 4 to 8 inches over western Cuba and the Cayman Islands, with isolated totals around 12. Over the eastern Yucatan, around 2 to 4 inches with isolated totals over 6. as we switch back to some imagery of the system there. Risk of flooding. And storm surge, 1 to 3 feet for the Dry Tortugas and the Florida Keys, 2 to 4 feet for Pinar del Rio, Cuba, and the Isle of Youth, 2 to 4 feet as well for the east coast of the Yucatan. And let me just read out as well rainfall expectations for John, of course, because that is pretty serious. As we look again at some of this imagery, the storm continuing to develop there, interesting appearance. So through Thursday, expected to produce 6 to 12 inches of rain with isolated amounts of 15 across coastal areas of Chiapas, in areas along and near the Oaxaca coast to southeast Guerrero, 10 to 20 inches with isolated totals near 30, and I think that's underestimating it, quite frankly. Significant and possibly catastrophic life-threatening flash flooding and mudslides to these areas, particularly in areas near the coast. Historic flooding potential, with 1 or 2 indications from models that the rainfall could reach 72 inches, which is 1,800 millimeters. So flooding a massive threat from John, possibly even now a bigger threat than it is the winds, but both of them are up there in their own right, with the winds over 100 miles per hour sustained possible along the coast. So we continue to watch that, and I'm getting more and more convinced that we're seeing a more pronounced northwesterly turn there, although it has actually slowed down in those latest frames. So Ethan, what happens then? Do you think it'll push back north or northeast and make a decisive landfall, or we're going to be stuck in limbo here with the storm just a few dozen of kilometers off the coast?
I think only time will tell.
Yeah, but those models have really changed, haven't they? They're all over the place now.
They have.
And really not too many conclusions you can draw from that. Do you want to recap with us again the recon schedule for the next couple of days here?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I haven't got a clue.
You haven't got a clue. Well, a recon flight earlier finished. There's no others on their way. They were trying to do one for John tomorrow. I mean, I tell you what, though, if it doesn't make landfall, they might actually be able to pull off that flight. And they must have multiple missions for 9L. But I don't have any info about that with me, and I don't think Ethan does, so I'm sure they'll be out at least a couple of times tomorrow. Good time to take questions. We've not got too much to talk about here. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. Do we think that the Hurricane models are picking up on an upper level jet boost for 9L? Is it actually that's causing that strengthening? I don't think it was, at least not until the very end.
I'm not entirely sure.
It didn't look that way to me. I also remember that there was a comment earlier who wanted to look at sea surface temperature, something we've not looked at today. So I will go ahead and show you some SST charts. Just got to get it running here. Just waiting. Okay. So first of all, I'm just going to load a few things up here. Just bear with me a second. We'll take a look at the tropics pretty much all over the areas that matter right now. But first of all, we're going to take a good look at the 2 storms in question here. So first of all, of course, we've got 9L. They haven't put a marker on it yet, at least on this graphic. But you can clearly see that sea surface temperatures are very good everywhere around it, at least in the Caribbean. It is 30 degrees pretty much at a minimum. Only higher temperatures than that in some areas off the Isle of Youth there, possibly above 32 degrees Celsius. Around the Florida Keys, lower Keys, pushing 32 degrees as well, and 1 or 2 little spots into the loop current there, northwest of Jamaica, also getting close to 32 degrees. Very warm indeed. Well, this is John, and temperatures around John are also very good. 31 degrees at least there, and it's only going to get warmer if it moves further west, so upwelling will still end up being an issue, but looks like it will be slower than what it could have been. So John definitely has some further opportunities if it does stay off the coast. Look at the North Atlantic as a whole, and first of all the Gulf. Temperature's still good all the way up the Florida coast. If it did make it all the way up to the Big Bend area, temperatures there still around 28 degrees Celsius. The Gulf Stream also quite decent there off the east coast of Florida, 31 to 32 degrees there. Off the Outer Banks, obviously chilly in the immediate vicinity, but just off the coast there, a little area of 29 degrees Celsius. And then out over the open Atlantic for 1 or 2 other potential systems there. Good temperatures, pushing close to 28, 29 degrees the further you head west. And then towards the Lesser Antilles, it's 30 plus. East Pac, John is over the best waters of the Eastern Pacific. Out to sea, temperatures much cooler in general. A few hot spots still. We're still near the peak, of course. And in the West Pac, looking at that whole region there, still a lot of areas that have very warm waters, but a few cooler spots. But in general, the temperatures are still looking good. Philippine Sea especially, a few spots there of 31 degrees Celsius there. So, quite impressive.
It's going to be a long few hours of watching both of these storms making landfall. Of course, we got John to work with first, then we got to work at 9L. We got to work out that, and that's going to take us, I imagine, a fair bit of time to get through.
Yeah, the whole week. But yeah, ATCF, the late news here that automated system, which is often but not always followed by the National Hurricane Center. They're running with 115 miles per hour category 3 for our John here, and a pressure of 962. We'll wait and see if they run with that, whether there might be an override, what happens. Now, I'm struggling a little bit here because my voice is about to give out. I've not been fully well, actually, for the last... for the whole time I've been away, Ethan. Can you believe that? So you have to bear with me a little bit there. Okay, there's been a comment there about silly range. Well, let's take a look at the rest of the models then. We obviously saw all the important stuff with Ethan, but I will show you the rest of the models. I haven't actually seen them myself, so it's going to be a revelation to us all. But I'll bring up the whole model runs and we'll look all around the world.
I mean, this is technically TWB hour for a reason.
Well, it is sure. So we're going to have a bit of that. So I'm just going to wait for the models to load here. Well, I'll show you from my vantage point, of course, different graphics to Ethan too, what the GFS is showing there in the short to medium range for these two storms. There's John. It hugs the coast for a bit and then it does pull inland just before it gets to Acapulco. And then just behind it, it isn't the same system, but there is another system trying to form there. Then, of course, you've got 9L Hurricane there, strengthening, category 2 probably at landfall. certainly a step down from what it was saying in previous runs. Now, what happens further east? The runs haven't completely loaded yet, but keep watching that system. There it is, blowing up. Hurricane there. That's that Eastern Atlantic system. Curving northwards, it does make a full recurve, gets pulled up, really makes some big headway there. Could still be tropical by that point. Ends up turning post-tropical later on, well into the North Atlantic. Goes on to hit Ireland and Scotland there. Looking further south, behind that, there might be another system that tries to form. Yep, there it is, a tropical storm, mature tropical storm there. Oh, look at that. That's a massive blow up right at the end of that run. How quick was that? Tropical storm on the 6th of October, and by the... Okay, it's not that quick actually. 8th of October, you then get a much bigger storm. Stirred a lot of noise there for some reason. I'm not sure what that was. So that's a significant hurricane moving up towards the northeast at the end of that. And then elsewhere, a substantial system forming that's not tropical, I don't think, but interesting nonetheless. Rest of the Eastern Pacific, what have we got? Well, not much after John. Central Pacific, could we still be looking at something happening there? The answer is no. Western Pacific, there's a big question mark of the Western Pacific right now. What is it up to? Any real signs? Only a tropical storm there near the westernmost islands of the Ryukyus and northern Taiwan into China. And then in the late range there, very long range, 2 big typhoons forming at the end. But that is very, very speculative. Indian Ocean, nope, nothing really, north or south. Southern Hemisphere, just to be sure. Looks like nothing. South Atlantic, could it be? Nope. And the European region, nothing in the Mediterranean, but there is a little feature there in the Black Sea right now off the north coast of Turkey, which is trying to become a brief subtropical cyclone, but at the moment has not succeeded. So that's what we're up to with the GFS model, right out to the long range.
Impressive.
Yeah, Storm Dennis has just joined the chat, apparently, saying any ideas as to how much wind shear John will impart upon 9L? Well, you're not the first one to ask that, but it really appears that John's influence on the Atlantic will be very little. We're just getting some new frames.
I remember reading something earlier that how powerful John is right now is actually going to help 9L.
Really? How does that work?
I think I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember what it said, but I think it has something to do with like the inflow into the storm, I think.
Maybe. Latest position update, 21 kilometers away from land. It is still getting closer. That's 4. It's moved in 4 kilometers there in the last nearly an hour, actually. So only very slowly getting closer to land. And the more we watch this, the more we try and get clues as to what this storm's going to do next. But I'm just wondering if it's starting to stall here a little bit.
It might be.
And that might favour, you know, it doing a tight little loop and then running up northwards back straight into land there. But certainly this landfall is getting pretty close already.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, my best guess, Ethan, overnight.
I mean, it's really anyone's guess at this point, just because of how uncertain things are.
Yeah, that would be my guess at this point. The way that's going there, I think it might stall and then go again and hit land overnight. But who knows at this point. Weak steering currents is going to do this kind of thing. but clearly John looking very good. Will it be officially a major hurricane at the next advisory? I am not sure, but it sounds like that might be what they're running with the ATCF. The next full advisory will be at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're about to finish here though, so we won't be there to pick that up, but I'm sure you'll find the news on the National Hurricane Center and any updates that we put out too. Weathercat says, what are the chances of the new invest going up the middle of Alabama? Now, what do you mean by the new invest? Are you talking about one way out at sea, or are we talking about 9L here? I assume they must be talking about 9L. Do you think it could hit Alabama, Ethan?
I'm sorry, what storm?
I assume they mean 9L. They've got to.
It's entirely possible.
Coastal Alabama, probably not, but certainly could move into inland regions there via Florida. And some more interesting comments there as well. But I think that's about it, really, from what I'm seeing from everyone there. So just to recap the latest watches and warnings once again. A hurricane warning in effect for John, obviously east of Acapulco to Bahia de Huatulco. Tropical storm warning for east of Bahia de Huatulco to Salina Cruz. And for PTC 9, still a disturbance, not yet a tropical depression or storm. I think it ought to be at least tropical storm strength, but they've kept it at 35 miles per hour. They have issued a new tropical storm warning in Grand Cayman, along with the ones already existing in Rio Lagatos to Tulum, Mexico, and the Cuban provinces of Artemisa and Pinar del Rio and the Isle of Youth. A hurricane watch for Cabo Catoche to Tulum and the Cuban province of Pinar del Rio, and a tropical storm watch for Dry Tortugas and the Lower Keys south of the 7 Mile Bridge. Both of these storms could be significant rainmakers, but John especially looks like it's going to be a massive rain problem here as we continue to watch its progress. I think regardless of what it does, it looks like it's going to be, just this big rain producer. And that was the sound of our music playing there as we're about to finish up. So we're going to leave you with this view of... Gee, Ethan, I almost did it. I almost said Otis. It's John moving northwestwards, possibly northwestwards there, along the coast of Mexico. It's right on the border between Oaxaca and Guerrero. 21 kilometers away. Ethan, closing thoughts from you?
Well, I'd certainly go stronger than 115 on John now.
Really? Damn.
Its eye is up now down to 19 degrees Celsius, negative, of course. Certainly on its way to something big.
Well, I think the 115 is a decent estimate to go with at the moment, but certainly could be on its way higher. Will it make landfall here and now tonight? Or will it be stubborn and stall? Will it turn away? Goodness only knows what it's going to do tonight. But it is very dangerously close to the coast here, with hurricane force winds of potentially over 100 miles per hour reaching the coast in a pretty short order. So hunker down and obviously be prepared. Prepare now was our title tonight. Definitely for John and absolutely for PTC 9 because you've got plenty of time right now, but make the most of it. That storm is on its way and it sure looks like it's going to be, if not very, very strong, it's going to be quite large, with storm force winds possible all along the Florida west coast. That's it from us tonight. We'll be back with more coverage in some form or other. We'll let you know just how on our social media platforms, but we'll see you again tomorrow.